everyone. Um, we're just starting our workshop for GCC Boom, writing the GCC Way for Career Success, hosted by Pivot today. And apologies for the delay. We were having some technical glitches, but after this, hopefully this 10-minute delay, we should be good to go. We have both our speakers already waiting to get on the stage very soon with you. So very excited for this workshop actually, because there is a lot of focus on GCCs today. Every day we are seeing news headlines about how people should be considering making a career within GCC or affiliated spaces because of the boom that's happening. I believe we are expected to touch about $100 billion worth of revenues in GCC by the end of this decade, and we're almost two-thirds way already there. So there's a lot at stake, and there are a lot of professionals who have already either built their careers in this space or thinking about venturing into this. So I think for whoever's in the space or thinking about getting into it, this session is going to be very helpful. So we are going to, without further ado, bring both our speakers, Vviral and Sharang, to the stage.
Hi, hello everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Vviral. Hi, Sharang. Good to have you both. How are you doing?
Likewise,
Okay.
Arjun.
All right, great. So
Good.
what we'll do, guys, just quickly before we dive in, maybe just a quick intro so that folks know a little bit about your background and journeys. And in fact, even though we've been hosting these and I've shared my intro a couple of times before, it's always good to not assume that people know me already. So I'll just quickly share a quick background about myself as well. So for those who don't know me, my name is Arjun, and I am the founder and CEO of Pivot, which is a startup that helps people make smooth and successful career transition. So anytime you're thinking about not just changing your job, but let's say some your profile related shift, whether it's your domain, your industry, your level in the organization, any of these different types of inflection points, that's really where we specialize. And in each case, our end goal is to help people land their target role, right? So yeah, we'll talk more about what we do and how we actually help people transition during the course of this conversation. But I would turn it to Vviral first and then Sharang to share a little bit about their journey and what you guys actually do today.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Arjun. First of all, thanks for organizing this event. I'm sure, there's definitely a lot to take out from this, and good to see you, Sharan, in person, in on the web. So, I hope everybody who is there who is doing great. We'll start with myself. I am Viral Shah. I'm into design and data leadership, playing role for over 15 years. I am based out of Pune, originally from Ahmedabad. I am fortunate enough to work with all the good Fortune 100 companies like Target, Cisco, and at present I work with Dell. My core expertise is into building a design or data driven design solution for the organization that I work for. And it is almost from the starting from the ideation to the development to the production, post production, and after that the performance measurement of the activity is what I do right now. So that's about me. The fun fact, if I can share, you may end up seeing the 2V on my name. My life was difficult without with just a single V, so I added double victories.
I like that fun fact.
Good to know, Viral. Thank you for that. Pleasure to be here, Arjun, Viral, both, and to everyone's listening. My name is Sharang. I currently am a client partner at Capgemini working with GCCs, specifically energy transition GCCs, and born and brought up in Mumbai. Have done my chemical engineering also from here, post that MBA, and I've been with the company since. So look forward to sharing all the insights that this booming industry has to offer for people looking to make careers in it. A lot of exciting times in India, particularly this industry ahead. So happy to be here and share my views.
Perfect. Great. All right. So thanks for sharing that background. I hope the context is set here. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is just the basic about GCC. So I think a lot of people know what global capability centers are, um, and there has been like some terminology differences over a period of time. People confuse about like what's the difference between IT services, BPO and GCCs. I think maybe we can just clarify for people who may be uninitiated or new to this as to what exactly GCC stand for, what's the operating model, and the most important conversational topic today, which is why is everybody so focused on GCCs and why are we talking about it so much? Viral, we'll start with you if that's okay.
Sure. So I think my overall observation from the time that I started my career is that earlier time that typically the scenario happened to be a kind of a back office sort of a system where people they just kind of given a specific task, you keep executing it and deliver it. What has happened is over the period of time there is in my area I had seen there is a great confidence buildup which has happened. There is a great trust that okay, it's not just work which has been given that team will deliver, but they can also think loud, think more, and they kind of try to kind of innovate a lot of area. So there are quite a good amount of trust which has happened. There is also a cultural factor because earlier scenario that which was kind of lacking. Now it is kind of going into that direction that people understand each other well. Communication plays a key role. So there is a good amount of traction, and what the other aspect is what I also see is that it's also the maturity. So earlier it happened to be more like an operational, but it is more like a strategic innovation hub. When it means is like you are not just expected to do the work, but you are also expect to kind of make the end user life much easier, where they just kind of do more things. And the team where I work with, there is a strong data or subject matter expertise that people have developed. With that, there's a lot of innovation, and India is blessed in terms of the technology, in terms of the kind of the ecosystem we have. That the way that startup culture, even the colleges, the kind of education which is provided, it is not exactly, but somewhere in line which supports the overall industry growth and boom. So yeah.
Got it. I think yeah, that's helpful to understand the fundamentals behind GCCs and the shift happening from operations more towards strategically more critical, more important areas to be focused on. Sharang, I think similar question to you. If you could also maybe parse out between if there is a difference versus the IT services sector, the TCS and the Infosys. I mean, a lot of the work that they do supposedly overlaps with GCCs. So, what is the key difference? And do you see a lot of, let's say, mobility of talent and business happening within GCC and these IT services companies?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sarjan. So I will touch upon and slightly build on to also what Viral said and answer your question between IT services and GCCs also. So rightly pointed, it started off as seeing as shared services, or India was seen as a back office support system. So it started off with say finance, accounting, HR, the back end processes for processing the information, data, technology systems. So that became a first kind of a level for GCC, which was the BPO level. Then the second level emerged as the IT level, which was application support, little pieces of digital. And then within the IT, slightly digital stuff started evolving, like trust started building onto the offshore counterparts. So application from support, it went to application development, then it became cloud computing, then slightly even artificial intelligence and other skills started getting added, that okay, you can build AI based tools, etc. And now what we are seeing is a third level of emergence, like industry 4.0, like engineering and R&D and innovation driven GCCs, which are not just doing back end work but driving product development, driving innovation from India. And certain GCCs are way mature, some are just starting to come out, but that's how we're seeing. There are also companies that started off as engineering and R&D first and then moved to, so there's no like linear path. But now we are seeing a whole gamut package of work kind of being coming into these centers. So they are global capability centers, earlier known as captive centers, but they are not captive, so to say. And now we are seeing global roles being emerged out of all of these GCCs. Earlier, there were no only leaders specific to geographies, but then now they have global roles, either APAC or EMEA, or sitting out of India and driving them. And between, say, an IT services and GCCs, I feel it's a decision between cost and control. And if you plot like a cost versus control matrix, then at the top, at the highest cost versus highest control, would be like setting up a center full grounds up, right? That is working with the local entities, development centers, builders, getting the regulation signed. So if you do that fully by yourself, there are tricks, there are higher costs, there is a higher timeline. Whereas there are certain boutique advisory companies which help you set up and accelerate that path, help you identify land faster, to be put on lease faster. So that's where an augmented services GCC also comes in, where partners help to do that and accelerate it. um, when you look for a lowest cost and the lowest control, that okay, you don't want, like as a client or as a company setting up a GCC, I want the lowest cost, but I want a low control also. Then a fully offshore sort of an IT services company comes in and builds like different sort of models are emerging now to help cater to a client, like a virtual GCC, where the people are provided by a company like a TCS or someone, and the client fully runs it. The IT provider is not responsible for governance. So different models are emerging to support companies scale up their India center. But the primary motive for companies setting up their technology centers is now technology is no longer a support function. You cannot just see it as an enabler, because now it has to get embedded into your business to make better strategies. So they want to insource and they want to control. So that's the driver for building these.
Very interesting. Okay. So I think the shift is definitely clear, and it seems like there has been quite a bit of evolution over the period of time. Today, there's much more of an impact that especially India-based GCCs at least are making. Um, what is the reason that it's expected to grow so significantly over the next couple of years? So, for example, one of the NASSCOM reports that I read said that currently GCCs have about $65 billion of revenues that they're supporting, and about, I think it was 18 lakh people who are employed within India in GCCs. By 2030, it's expected to grow over $100 billion and approximately 25 to 26 lakh people employed, right? That is double digit growth every year, especially for a sector that's already pretty mature and has been there for over a couple of decades. So, if you could, in a nutshell, Viral, tell us from your perspective, what are some of the key trends that are actually driving this boom at this stage? While there's so many other economic challenges for other industries that are presented. Like even in tech, we see product-based tech companies, like the profitable ones, laying off people in thousands for the last 2 3 years. GCCs have a very contrasting story. So, what's happening here?
I think it's a interesting take. So obviously, in terms of any industry, so in if you really look, the main driver of it is like what kind of a technology pool that we are getting. Second is also in terms of at a ground level the kind of subject matter expertise that people sort of build, because it is more like a domain expertise in terms of how exactly that on the larger scale the work that you are doing can contribute for the audience that you are making. So it really plays a role in that aspect. Apart from that, I think there are a lot of roles considering the GCC, like for typically like a product managers or those the data analysts, automation engineers. I mean, though they are kind of getting lot in demand, because there is kind of a confidence per se that yes, I mean, there is a good amount of understanding that the folks has, and they can kind of deliver it. So I always see more in terms of a technical or technology strength, or the more of a technological strength, which sort of help and support, and also the government policy in a way where there is a lot of good startup ecosystem. We are seeing, like, there is the data center and all those kind of things, which sort of support all those initiative at a larger scale. So it helps for those company to even, like, don't just think from the operational point of view, but build something which is large and for the scalable for the future.
Okay. And Sharang, any thoughts on the same? Uh, Apart from like the technological shift and the pool of talent, obviously that makes a lot of sense that Viral has shared. But like, why suddenly the double
Yeah.
digit and increased focus in this sector?
Yeah. So if you see, still only 20% of Fortune, say 2000, have a GCC or a technology presence in India. There is still a big market of companies who have not realized this. So there is a big opportunity. The pie is already very big. People are slowly beginning to realize that technology needs to be somewhere insourced. Somewhere we need to have a mix of great talent, great dedication, strong English speaking skills, and ability to work with other people in humility. And India brings like a mix of those. There are Philippines and other nations also building some form of GCCs, but the shift is mainly because understanding that as technology grows, as we evolve, India has delivered consistently in terms of, say, offshoring, in terms of, say, IT services, or in terms of, say, um, even working very well in tandem with Europe or with US. India has consistently delivered well in the last 20 years. And companies have started to evolve, understand that, okay, now I've culturally aligned to India as a country, and the people seem to be very strong and promising. That's why we're seeing a lot of people having global roles and even move to geographies. And globally, everybody, like, the trend in the past 5 years post COVID is cost cutting is a major trend. And we're seeing, observing clients across the companies across the world looking to offshore and as many people as they can. So you were seeing firing trends, right? So many companies announcing layoffs, even in the
Right.
US, but they're laid off there. But of course, those people vacancies have to be created somewhere, right? So the offshoring trend is what is going on at a place where there is strong demand or there is promising land for these skills and technologies. So that's what causing, and companies have become. So now then you ask, why is there a cost focused so much, right? It's because of the economic trend again, where we saw so much rise in the stock price, anything till 2021. And then they realized, well, this is a bubble. People want better EBITDA. Investors want better returns. You can't just keep promising better sales because market is slightly flattening on top. Everybody's focused on bottom line. And this is a phenomenon across the globe. Like any client investor presentation you read, any company's annual report you need, they have cost targets. They have it. That is a bigger reason the investors want savings and a leaner P&L and a leaner ops, and only core functions there is what is driving this move to ramp up offshore centers and move other work here. If that makes sense, Arjun. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me by any chance? I am actually having some
Yeah.
technical glitches again. You can
Yes.
hear me? Okay.
No.
Apologies. But I think, Sharang, I got most of what you shared. I think the cost cutting factor is definitely one of the most significant ones that we have seen recently. I mean, started all with, Twitter, with Elon Musk, doing something which nobody had dared to do before, slashing half of, X's workforce. And then it just started as a, snowballing effect across different industries. And now to the point where we are seeing almost every company at a larger scale thinking about laying off in thousands, or at least the majority of the redundant roles. But you're saying like a lot of these roles are being recreated or filled not within the domestic, like the headquarter country, but rather the GCC sector. How much of that displacement is actually 100% filled, or like especially within India is completely taken over, um,
Hmm.
which was earlier, let's say, being done by employees based out of US or Europe. Is there almost like a 100% replacement? Is it 50%? Is there some trend that you can share here?
Yeah, I can say something and then definitely Viral can add. The trend that I'm seeing in terms of offshoring is, say, a 40-year-old person is hypothetically, say, laid off in the US or Europe. The decision being made here is to fill that with a smaller level experienced person, say either one or two. So the challenge becomes the knowledge transition to a junior level folk here, because cost needs to be maintained. And I'm just giving an example. It's not that all senior folks will be replaced by a much junior person, but that's the typical trend that we see. And how do you do the knowledge transfer in a sensitive way, knowing the person may lose his job there, but still in India people want to know how can we run the whole supply chain knowledge repository overall, manage it from India with that transition. That's where sometimes partners come in, sometimes experienced folks come in to make that knowledge transition happen and create like a, see, now it's GenAI enabled knowledge repository, so that people, even smaller experienced folks, can act as a 5-year engineer or a 7-year engineer. That's the thought process that is being driven. I don't know if you caught that, Arjun, but in a nutshell, it's moving a higher experienced folk to a work in the US to a lower experienced folk in India, and counting on leaders in India as well as GenAI based knowledge platforms for a 1-year engineer to act as a 5-year engineer. It takes time, but that's the trend or a thought process we're seeing and enabling with companies.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely helps with cost cutting. I just obviously wonder if that's going to impact the quality of outcomes and overall um, role that experience plays. I wonder like how much of that actually is brought by India-based employees or GCC-based employees. But let's segue to the next topic here, because I think there's a lot to cover. I want to get to people's Q&A as well. Um, Viral, I wanted to understand. I mean, you on your LinkedIn profile, you have listed, senior leader of UX, data science, product, program, couple of these different amalgamation of functions, right? And Sharang also shared that he's worked in, energy and a couple of other different sectors. So obviously, GCC is a multi-functional, multi-industry growth story, right? It's not just, it may be classified as one sector, but it delves into multiple different kinds of sectors and industry and roles. So, out of everything that's happening today from a growth perspective, what kind of roles and sectors can one expect the greatest opportunities to come from? Um, is there a specific segment that you think is poised to grow faster or much more than the others, or do you think it's kind of like similar growth story across different sectors? It's just that every company across different sectors is thinking about starting up a GCC.
So can you hear me? Because I've been getting a message that's been muted. Can
Yeah, we can.
Okay, all right, thank you. So the way that I see it is definitely the core technology roles which are sort of in demand, and typically those are like the Gen AI and the development, design, and everything is there. But moreover, if I really detail it out, it is more to do. It is not just a one function of the work, but it is like how a person can contribute to the larger spectrum of the so when a task or anything which is expected to be done, it is not only focused to that particular task, but if you step back, look around at how it can be majorly influenced. So when I say that, what it means is like, a typically programmer, they just don't need to only focus around the programming, but, think about like, how exactly the data would play a role, or how about the customer satisfaction would play a role if they do a feature, or can we do the defect, or can we by anyhow reduce the defect or things like that, where customers shouldn't be facing those glitches when they are in the final set of like the ordering something. So there are a larger boundary. It is not only restricted to a specific skill set. I mean, obviously there are skill which is typically in a case where the product manager, program manager, they are always there in demand. But apart from that, the larger scope of the work, understanding the domain and subject matter expertise would definitely help an individual to think through that how can they be placed in the right format for the company.
Got it. And Sharang, same question for you, if you can share your thoughts on this.
Yes, so I see it based on industry and then technologies. So, in my experience, the technology, media, telco, these kind of clients like a Verizon or a companies like Airbnb, Spotify, so many of tech companies have HubSpot have opened their GCCs in the last few years itself. So the biggest trend we are seeing is our tech and media and telco companies setting up new age, setting up their GCCs now. So yeah, you can eye them. There are quite a few. I can name them. I even have them open just to share it with the clients. There are in the 5 years. So that's the first level of industry I would look at. The second level of industry I would look at for careers in GCCs are manufacturing and life sciences companies. Significant amount of companies have set up Cummins, say 3M, Boeing and Airbus. Boeing announced some time back they're setting up a large campus in Bangalore. Many of them have announced setting up GCC. So manufacturing and life sciences and others are the second category of companies. The third category are also consumer product companies and retail companies. Like said, we will say Target is one company. Walmart has a very big GCC. Tesco has very big GCCs. PepsiCo announced that they are building a GCC. So look at these are the third category or industry that I would say, and then finally would be chemicals and energy and other also who have set up and are looking to announce and set up new GCCs. Like because we know that a lot Chevron recently announced that they are building a big center in Bangalore. There are companies which are coming in and announcing publicly that they are setting up. It's just a matter of looking up, doing smart search for people looking up for careers. How many companies have announced in the last say 2 years to look at? So that's one level industry. If you as a person are interested in exploring careers in each of these industries, either media or CP, consumer product retails, or say energy, you should look at energy level and you can look at the industry level. Then the second way in terms of highest demand technology skills that I'm seeing in the industry are engineering and R&D and core. So that's one level of skill which has seen maximum upliftment and interesting demand. Industry 4.0, hybrid intelligence, product development, IoT led skills. There are SCADA systems and MES systems which people want to run from India. A lot of those IoT based connected plants or connected engineering in general, digital engineering, number one driver of skills in GCCs. Second would be more of digital and IT, would be Gen AI, in my understanding, Gen AI or cloud or analytics. These are core digital skills now. Even cyber security. Cyber is also emerging as a massive outsourced, creating firewalls and entry uh, VPNs or other access control stuff. A lot of cyber or cyber security infrastructure skills are booming in India. Third level would be application development and support or custom software development. But if you are doing software development, you should look to do interviews by saying I've figured out how to use GenAI to develop software, or I'm experimenting with GenAI to write code because that's what companies are experimenting with right now. How can we accelerate product development time overall, including UI UX, including code generation? So that's the in terms of industry and skill I would see. Right.
Yeah,
Thank
that's a
you.
very helpful breakdown. And I think the way you categorize the sector, especially I think the TMT and then consumer product and then energy chemicals, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it seems like a lot more companies are trying to jump on that bandwagon because of the benefits that you derive from a specialized talent pool and also more cost effective resources. But one of the things that I wanted to touch upon, and I think both of you have sort of mentioned this at a high level, but obviously everything today is being looked from the lens of AI as well, right? um, Obviously GCCs being in the tech sector is getting impacted severely, or rather is driving AI evolution in the world as well. So when we look at what's happening in US and China in terms of deep tech and AI powered startups, how do you see that kind of impacting the evolution in GCC as well? So, for example, apart from the fact that GCCs might help enable the global counterparts, embed AI within their technical infrastructure. Do you see that GCCs themselves are becoming more and more efficient using AI workflows and automation and those kind of things? Like, what's the scope of AI when it comes to GCC, and how should people who are within GCC sector or considering GCC as a potential career think about AI as a skill set? Viral, we'll start with you. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a large scale the way the things that has been done so far. I mean, definitely a lot of things is in terms of either automated, where probably there is no human intervention which is required. I mean, it can be self-driven, but somewhat just to check that things are functioning well. But apart from that, because of the AI expansion, there is a lot of awareness and the solutioning what has been given. I mean, there is definitely a touch of like how can we make things where instead of doing a certain step to complete a certain activity, how can we like kind of advance it with a minimal effort. So there is a lot of adoption in that regard. Talking about like what I had seen into our task is definitely in terms of a task automation, which is quite a role where there's a lot of activity which happen to be like a manual, which is kind of getting converted into more of an automation side of the work. So, I mean, those are my learnings, but overall, I see that there is a definitely a large scale which is happening in terms of AI adoption.
Got it. And Sharang, have you seen with your clients or within your industry, are there specific types of industries which are more inclined towards embracing AI faster, or do you see that happening? Like, for example, you talked about consumer chemicals, energy,
Yeah,
TMT. Do you see almost equal appetite for AI powered products
yeah.
or some
So
differences?
absolutely. So in naming the industries, I actually forgot naming the most important industry in the GCC sector overall is the banking and financial services. So typical trend is that banking and financial services companies spend 9% of their revenue on technology spends, whereas other companies spend about 2 to 4% of their revenue on technology. So that itself shows that banking companies or financial services or insurance companies are more prone to deploy technology faster, safer, better. So we always see a trend banking companies do it first, but that's evolving because tech is now catching up. Tech is the companies like all of these Airbnb, Spotify, HubSpot, Google, all of the tech companies are now equally spending enough on new innovation, which is not core of their product, like, but new innovation tech investment. They are matching that. So you're seeing e-commerce led, say even in not moving from GCCs or Amazon or Zomato and Swiggy have started embedding Gen AI in their customer service and support. So these are the second level of companies after financial services. Tech companies use spend more on AI. So the likelihood of these two industries spending more on AI is seen and it's evident also. And the way I'm seeing in industry overall, that AI, Gen AI has gone from being boardroom conversations about year and a half back to pilot stages about say 1 year back or 8 months back to now ready production use cases being deployed at solutions. So now we've already reached that where people have started uh,
And Sharon,
building.
sorry to cut you off, but these solutions that you mentioned, is this more from a like a customer end product standpoint, or are you talking about in-house workflow and process automation, or kind of like both? Okay.
So if I can classify, if you want me to go deeper into where are we seeing most use cases, right? So three levels again, like now I'm like speaking in only levels, I think. But three levels. First level is the business value chain level. So when I say business value chain, take any client, any company, manufacturing company, for example. In its customer support, you have to use Gen AI because any sort of service support required, we can use a Gen AI agent to instantly resolve customer support and turnaround. We've seen like 30-40% faster query resolution. Like a simple example, you order a Swiggy, your customer support responses are not by people. It's some app, it's some model that's giving it. Same with Amazon, same with others. So now companies are also doing it. If it's some turbine that they are manufacturing, for some companies buying that is one. Then there is sales. So customer support is done. Now again into the sales side. RFP generation writing. We are seeing use cases coming up there where the RFP writing or a sales stage for creating a proposal that's automated and Gen AI enabled. Then there is automation in maintenance. Like maintenance, any sort of maintenance, a engineer goes to the site and sees, oh, things has broken. Some pump is broken, for example. A lot of the time that maintenance guy spends in finding the best way to fix a pump. But now he has a manual, digital manual. How do I fix the pump? Step by step, SOP comes in with a record that this pump has been broken 3 times in the past 12 months. This is how they was fixed in the past. So clear cut information on what could probably have gone wrong, faster turnaround time, more uptime. So we're seeing this across business level. Then there is technology level workflows, which are SAP or Salesforce or Copilot. They're producing their own Gen AI agents for better inventory management and all of that. Then the third level is IT. Now this is your automation workflow where code development is coming in. Testing is done by Gen AI. Testing product development scripts are being written by. Any ticket query or AMS support is being enabled by Gen AI. If my application is broken, there's Gen AI. Long answer, but it's actually everywhere. It's being picked up everywhere across a lot of areas.
Got it. That's very, I mean, I would not have expected anything else, but just wanted to see kind of the pace and the scale at which this is happening. It seems like it's picking up fast, and
Yep.
it's just since I think you said last 1.5 years that's gone from just a boardroom conversation to actual production ready kind of
Yep.
solutions here. So that's very interesting. Now, I want to actually focus on something that we help our clients and our users most with, which is to help transition in their careers, land their target role. So let's bring that lens into the conversation a bit more now, right? Like we have been discussing what's happening from a business standpoint and tech standpoint. Let's talk about careers now. So I think Sharon, you touched upon this earlier with regard to the overall skill landscape and how you see that again from a level perspective. What skills are being, kind of more important versus the others in GCC area. Viral, actually, I would love to get your take on that as well, right? So let's focus on skills for a minute now, because there is a diversity of roles and industries out there. Um, for example, Sharon talked about like BFSI being one of the most important industries, and now tech is becoming neck and neck with that. So, do you see in the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years, certain types of skills becoming much more in demand? Similar to, like, for example, how product management was maybe 10 years ago or 12 years ago in India, and then it sort of plateaued, at least from a tech product company perspective, it plateaued over the last couple of years. But I mean, I'm sure you remember, and the same thing happened with data. It's really started with a bang, and even today it's pretty premium role, but it's not growing as a field, as fast as it was maybe 10 years ago. So, what are the equivalents of those roles today from a GCC perspective?
I see that. I mean, overall, there is definitely a touch. It is any like such roles. I mean, it kind of repurpose, but there is definitely a push in terms of having certain sort of functional understanding that how to drive certain capabilities. On the same time, also with this new evolution in terms of those AI tools and everything, understanding or literacy of at least dissecting the data, getting some strong insight out of it, and then kind of solving that problem in hand. I mean, those area definitely is this area of a product manager, program manager, they play a key role. But there is a the job description has lengthened compared to what it used to be earlier, because still that role in terms like definitely you need somebody who can drive some those kind of function. There is a strong push in terms of automation. So like typically in automation, engineers who can kind of derive and shorten the flow or the process flow to make things faster. I think that is another area. And overall, like this cloud computing, security, and all those areas is somewhere where it's a key skill. Along with that overall expertise of the subject, it helps to kind of crack into those GCC areas.
Got it. That's helpful. I think a lot of similar insights and overlaps with what I think Sharang had also shared previously. Sharang, want to understand slightly broader level question when it comes to making career decisions for a person who's building their career in GCC. So let's say you are from either engineering or like a project program management sort of a background. One of the more common roles we have been seeing, at least at Pivot, when people come to us, we've been seeing people targeting these kind of roles a lot more, right? So now when we are thinking about these type of roles specifically, if I was to target a premium opportunity, meaning the most high responsibility, high pay kind of roles in the next 2 to 3 years, what should I be doing to be able to land those roles?
So I use specifically for GCCs, if I say,
Yes.
like Viral mentioned, product led roles are emerging, but you should be smart enough to see if that GCC is mature enough or not. And I'll tell you why. Because when it's a new GCC, say in the last 3 years or 4 years, the companies, the headquarters still building trust with that. Like for example, Airbnb or HubSpot or others, still trying and building trust in terms of giving quality work or not. But if it's an old, mature 10 plus year, 15 plus year GCCs, you will have product leads also in India. Like for example, I know we will mention Target. Target has product owners in India. No, a new GCC, even though it's a fancy tech high pay company, will not have product owners in India. They will have product support functions in some form, slight enhancements, changes, but not an owner. So you should look to get a high bigger GCC and an elevated role versus a smaller GCC and an entry level role. So, because a likelihood of having a good elevated role and a smaller GCC is lesser, because they have a smaller GCCs to get like a 2 to 5 year experience person mostly. So that's how I would see it. I would look at the maturity of the GCC. Okay, this is stable. This has say 5,000 plus people. I can actually make my career there. It's gone through a GCC attrition curve and rate. GCCs have their own curve to stabilize. When it's gone through them, they've stable. That is when I will enter. And I was reading some days that if you're say slightly experienced for freshers or say zero to 3 years experience folks, I would recommend picking industry that they like, because technology and business barriers are bridging. If you are enabling Gen AI or something good with technology for your industry, if it's life sciences that attracts you, target the industry first and then figure out a role level within it. But for a higher person experience, say 10 years and above, I will recommend I for global roles. Don't settle for a normal role at even a scaled company. Look for global exposure driven from India. Can I have geographies or other geographies also supported from India? That's a big trend I'm seeing. The trend is so much that right now we have about 6,000 global roles in India. This is as per a NASSCOM report. But by 2030, we're going to have 30,000 global roles in India. So that's a massive shift in giving power in India. Find those sweet spots is what I would recommend.
Really like the
Yeah, I think great.
narrative that you
Go ahead,
yeah,
Viral.
I really like that labeling that you have provided in terms of the entry level role, like certain the
Yeah.
startup, and it's definitely helpful for a lot many people, because starting something at a really big level, it becomes difficult because the expectations are such, and starting something at a junior level for those 0 to 3 years experience, it helps to at least get themselves going, understand the entire process, how things function, because even to gain an understanding at a larger scale that how the function works, technology is one aspect, but even the communication, the expectation, it totally helps. And that entry level or the startup level, it kind of sets you up for the bigger GCC. So yeah, it is a great example.
Thank you. Yeah.
Definitely. Also, I mean, if we are talking about people who might have more experience, let's say like, over 7, 8 years experience, up to like 15, 20 years experience, because to be very honest, guys, that's where we get most of our clientele, right? These are people making transitions, not necessarily starting out. But, one thing that we have seen as a trend, I would love to get your take is earlier it used to be seen as somewhat of a not a career suicide, but more like a, down step when people transition from, let's say, product based tech organizations, even if they were Indian organizations or, global MNCs, to like IT services or GCC, right? It was seen as sort of like the less respected or the lesser of the two opportunities. I think that is changing. That mindset is shifting today because of equal or perhaps sometimes even better global opportunities coming up, right? And we are seeing more and more people, let's say, who have either been let go or even don't want to continue with companies like Mang, the Metas and Amazons of the world, transitioning to some of these uh, global capability centers of of other organizations. Have you seen this happen, and do you think this is something that more people should consider?
Yeah.
Sharon, go ahead if you have. It seems like you might have a
I've
few
seen
on that.
transitions from, say, the top tier consulting organizations to product companies a lot. That happened in COVID. Then lately, I'm seeing transitions from both, from industry, which is say BFSI tech, or the to coming to IT services, and from IT services also going to like a Target or a Cisco or someone. Those transitions are more common because you've done, say, lived 10 years doing different projects in an IT services, and you found like an industry that you love and you've really liked, and you jump into a GCC of a chemicals company, for example. And I've seen that happen quite frequently. 10 years within services, and then 10 years scaling a GCC of a new company in an industry that you like, and same wise. But moving from big tech or product companies like, say, even a Swiggy, Zomato, or Google or Amazons of the world, I'm comparing them in the same category because they're all tech product companies. I have not seen that shift yet from there to actually running GCCs. I may be wrong, haven't seen that yet. But knowing that there are enough global roles now at stake, there is incentive for folks to come and drive things from India because they are at a much elevated position in a GCC.
Right. Right. There's a premiumization that's
Yeah.
happening, that's underway. And I think if you can ride that wave, you might be able to actually get similar or better opportunities. And I'm talking about not like the leaders at those companies, but like at least people at the, junior to mid level who might be planning the next rung in their career. Um, Viral, do you have any thoughts on this? Like, do you see talent mobility happening in different ways than what was happening earlier?
I think Sharan has covered most part of it, and this is similar in terms of the trend that what I have been noticing that the people who are sort of seasoned and they have been working in a big tech, uh, their experience always been benefited for the GCC who are into that early stage. So it sort of helped to even setting up the right system, the expectation, and everything. So I think it is more or less what Sharan has covered in detail.
Got it. Got it. All right. I think we are almost coming up on our time. We did get a couple of questions from people, which I have. I think like the last one I have already covered here. Um, I think the last thing that I just want to understand, the overall job market has not been the most positive in the recent times in India. That's not necessarily the case with GCCs. I think, like we said, we're expecting a lot of boom here. Um, Now, in terms of job search prep specifically, from apart from like the typical resume, LinkedIn interview prep, those are all I think covered very well on multiple platforms, like what you're supposed to do. So don't want to get into that. But are there any differentiated job search strategies that you have seen, maybe as hiring managers or in your own experience, whenever you have tried to apply for a new role, which are working specifically well in GCC space? And Sharang, we'll start off with you
Yeah,
on
I
this one.
think two for me are have I've seen as differentiated and they work with a good success rate. First is get LinkedIn Premium and find open roles, of course, what target companies you want. But instead of applying on LinkedIn or applying somewhere, find a VP of sales if you're looking for a sales or VP of product and DM them on LinkedIn and DM them saying not that I want a job, but say that I will help you improve your product NPS or something because I've done this before. Are you looking to hire? You will be surprised that 2 out of 10 people actually respond if they are hiring. They will not look at the hiring channel route, but they will take your referral and then give it to HR, and that's a higher likelihood of converting. And I've seen that, and I've told people that at levels because this will work. A CEO is more likely to respond to you over LinkedIn than over email because they have 100 emails per day, but they have like 4 or 5 LinkedIn messages per day. So
Yeah, plus they can see your profile on LinkedIn. They
absolutely,
don't know who you are on
yeah,
LinkedIn. Yeah.
and that has worked. I've seen it work do wonders. So that's one. And second would be um, use referrals even if you're applying. Don't do easy apply on LinkedIn or don't just apply on a job. Find again people on LinkedIn who are random folks. If you don't know people on that company, message them and ask them to refer you because a referral is significantly higher chances of even landing an interview than just a normal application. So do that. And if you ask even a
Yeah.
stranger to refer you, they will because they have incentive to refer you. If you get selected, they get paid. So I've referred even strangers, honestly. I don't mind, and that's the norm actually that's happening. So do that and leverage that.
Got it. Viral, any thoughts on
Yeah, I
this?
think one more additional thing that I can say is that nowadays like we are always rely more around the building the right resume, but we often forget to kind of talk about the great work that we do. So with LinkedIn, definitely like posting like what exactly that kind of problem you solve, maybe a detailed case study. Somebody may be into the same area and they kind of consider that okay, this individual is experienced and can kind of solve a similar problem what we have in place. So and it has its own perks because the way that the larger the area that messaging grows, I mean definitely the people in terms of the reverse engineering, in terms of contacting and things like that. So I think yeah, apart from the referral, I think this also in terms of talking about the contribution that you are making to an industry would definitely help.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you so much, folks. This was very helpful. I think a lot of good insights, new information that you both shared. So really appreciate you joining, and you're sharing everything so candidly and so in a structured manner. I hope whoever joined us today was able to get some good, actionable insights that you can apply. I think that's really what our end goal is with these sessions. And in case you have any questions, or if you need further support on your transition, do check out Pivot. You can also reach out to Viral or Sharang on platforms like Pivot or directly on LinkedIn, wherever you might find them. We provide one-on-one connections where you can have direct personalized feedback from folks like these on how to accomplish your transition and how to achieve your target role. But that's pretty much it for today. Really appreciate everybody taking time out to join, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their evening. And special thanks to Viral and Sharan for joining and sharing a wealth of insights. Thank you
Thank
both.
you.
for having us, Arjun.
All right, take care.
Bye bye.